Hello, everybody. It's been 2 weeks since we've given you an update, and we're going to talk about something today that I don't normally talk about. We frequently get into the stats and the microstats so much that sometimes we can fail to see the big picture. And if you are someone who's considering buying a home, or you have a loved one and you watch this because you're thinking maybe I hope someday they're able to buy a home here in Southern California, this is really kind of a video for you. And it's something I've wanted to do for a little while, but we've had so much data that it's just been a little tough. But today, that's a little bit different. So we're going to be weaving that into our conversation. We're still going to go through our usual stats, but I do want to talk a little bit about the big picture. Let's get started. My name is Stephen Meade with Domicile Real Estate, where we are on a mission to help California's renters become homeowners. This is our Southern California first time buyer market update. It's May 27th today. I hope everyone had a great Memorial Day weekend. I think, especially this year, as is typical this time of year, we have some just really nice, pleasant weather, and it kind of reminds us of why we spend so much money to live here, why housing is so expensive, to be in a place that is neither cold nor humid. Those two things equate to a very, very expensive locale. So I want to talk a little bit about that, and we're going to jump right into our stats, but I want to weave this into what are we doing and why does this actually matter? So stay tuned as we dive in to our usual stats. We've really got something special for you this week as well. So looking at our closed prices, one of the things I want to talk about here is really just generally how steady things have been over the last year. I mean, we're kind of right around that $800,000 price point. I think we've kind of been in that zone a bunch of times before for our entry level single family home in LA and Orange counties. And something that keeps popping up on Facebook, and I can't help it. I wish I had a little visual to show you guys, but it kind of shows what homes cost in, say, 1955, and then the equivalent with inflation, what that would be today. And of course, the reality is the home prices are much more expensive than that. And we may think of that as a bit of a recent trend, but the reality is, in general, housing has outpaced inflation. And probably the biggest reason for that is that, housing is based on land, which doesn't really depreciate. And there are more and more people living in the United States each year. So that makes it a scarce resource. So the first thing I want to impart to you on this notion of prices, even as we're talking about this chart here, is this idea that there's some expectation that housing should be a constant cost as a percentage of incomes. And that really hasn't been true, not in the last 10 years, but frankly, not really in the last 30 years either. Housing prices have generally outpaced inflation. So that means if you're a person sitting on the sidelines, you can look at it this way. An excellent hedge against inflation is to buy a home. And one of the reasons that this happens is because of the 30-year fixed rate mortgage. So because of that, it actually increases the price of housing, because what do you get when you buy a home? You get housing cost security. So if we look at our total monthly payment here, this is not all bad news, right? Our peak point on our chart about a year ago was what we were at $6,800 a month for that typical entry level single family home, 5% down, including mortgage insurance, taxes, etc. And it's a similar story on the condo front. Back around this time last year, we were quite a bit higher. So the reality is, if you're a buyer, you're in a significant better position today than you were a year ago. Between availability of homes, between the pricing of homes and interest rates, you're actually in a better spot than you were a year ago. I think it's important sometimes to remember that. And, one of the things I also try to tell people, again, looking at this big picture, is that attempting to time the market really is a bit of a fool's errand. And the reason being is, A, you're likely to lose that game. And that is, if homes go up in value over the long run, all things being equal, you are more likely to be in a bad spot by waiting versus buying. And, this is something I like to tell clients every time I talk to them, especially first time home buyers, is that this is a marathon, not a sprint. Now, is it wonderful when your home is worth 20% more 24 months after you buy it? Of course, that's a wonderful feeling, looking at the home values and realizing you got in when you did. But understand that really Homeownership is a long-term game. It's got ups and downs, but the idea is that over 20 years, you're significantly better off financially. If we look at our minimum household income required, that also has really stayed in a similar range for the last year. We actually have some stability in the market. And if you're in a condo buyer, that income required has actually gone down a little bit, right? So if you look about a year ago, we were probably at 160,000 or so. If we're looking about a year ago, and where are we today? Right around the same amount. However, a year ago, we were at 125,000 for a condo, and we're at 113,000 today. So I'd actually say if you're a condo buyer, really, or even if you're not a condo buyer, definitely give condos a second look. I'm not saying it's the right decision for you, but really, with a lot of the issues we're seeing with HOAs, with insurability, with some other things, now could actually be a good time to sort of seek out some of those condo deals. If we look at our absorption rate, that's actually gone up a little bit in the last 2 weeks. 73% on an entry-level single-family home side. That's a pretty strong number. 58% is stronger than we're at on the condos. That implies we're finally starting to see a little bit of that spring pickup happening. I think with some of the economic uncertainty this spring, I think that's really delayed our spring home buying season. I think now people believe that the tariff situation might be under some sort of control. I think all that's really easing those people who've been on the sidelines back into the home buying market. We look at our total inventory. This is one that I found particularly interesting. So, what does a graph like this tell me? It tells me that total inventory is leveling off. Now, could this be a momentary level off? Maybe, but if you look at the shape of this curve, it's really been leveling off for a little bit while. I'm curious to see where we're going to be in 2 weeks. One theory of why this might be happening, especially for those entry-level single-family homes, is that we might have seen a big part of our spring home selling season. The sellers all put their homes on the market, but the buyers were delayed. So the sellers didn't wait, but the buyers did. And that asymmetry in market timing could create a graph like this. I'm very curious to see if this flattening really continues 2 weeks from now, or if this was kind of just a one little step. If you look on our chart here, you can see last year there were periods where it kind of eased off and kind of started going up slowly. So we could just be seeing one of those. Now, if we look at our 14-day still active, remember this is sort of a measure of relative demand. This is still showing demand being a little bit weaker. And what does this tell me, right? This tells me that buyers are being a little bit pickier and that there's a bigger spread between the homes that are the haves and the have-nots in terms of which homes are selling. If we look at our week's supply of homes, this one was interesting too. We saw maybe a nominal movement on the entry-level single-family home side with 9 weeks of inventory almost. But look at what happened is we actually saw things flatten out a bit on that condo market. Now, that's despite the fact that condo inventory went up. So what does that say? It says buyers of condos have come back into the marketplace. I think we're finally starting to see, again, that question of economic stability is being answered a little bit. And I think that's giving these typical springtime home buyers a little bit more of that confidence to move forward. Now, as I said, this week we're going to talk just a little bit about what is this big picture. And I think sometimes it's very easy to get caught up in what are the interest rates this week? What are the buyers like this week? And while this is useful information, I think sometimes we use that as a tool to be a little too afraid to act. And, something I like to tell clients and go in there is I say, me talking to you is not about me convincing you to buy a home. It's about getting you to a point where you feel comfortable making a decision. Is now the right time for you to buy a home or not? And I think that's really the question you need to be asking yourself is this the right time for me to be pursuing a home purchase or not? And there's a lot of things that go into that decision, not just the market, but many things that are in your personal control as well. What's your job situation like? Do you think you're going to have to move? Do you think your family configuration or size may be changing in short order? All of these things do make a difference. So absolutely, that's the question you need to be thinking about, is that big question. Is it the right time for me? Anyhow, thanks so much for watching. Questions and comments, we do love them. If you are looking to buy a home or you know someone who is, we would absolutely love to chat with you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And we will see you again real soon.